197. The Flower and Rock Tribute, Huashergang. After ruling for 8 years, Empress Dowager Gao passed away, and Emperor Zhizong began his personal rule. The young emperor had long resented his grandmother's preference for the conservative faction, so once he took control, he reinstated the reformers. However, unlike Wang Engshi, who had sincerely attempted to reform the government, the new reform faction was filled with opportunists. They engaged in endless internal conflicts, and many officials used reform as an excuse for personal gain. When Emperor Zhizong died, his younger brother Emperor Huizong, Zhao Ji, ascended the throne, plunging the government into even greater disorder. Emperor Huizong's extravagance and the rise of Kai Jing. Emperor Huizong was infamous for his indulgent and reckless lifestyle. He showed no interest in governing the country and devoted himself entirely to pleasure and artistic pursuits. One of his closest aides was the powerful eunuch Tong Guan, who catered to the emperor's extravagant tastes, searching for rare books, paintings, and treasures to satisfy Huizong's desires. During a trip to Suzhou, Tong Guan met a frustrated official named Kai Jing, who was desperate for power. Wanting to ingratiate himself with Tong Guan, Kai Jing flattered and entertained him daily, even gifting him calligraphy and paintings he had personally created. Tong Guan, pleased with these gifts, sent them to Emperor Huizong, praising Kai Jing as a rare and exceptional talent. Huizong, eager to find officials who supported his reformist stance, was intrigued. Kai Jing then gathered a network of supporters and used them to lobby for his promotion. One official presented a diagram to Emperor Huizong, listing all the officials in court. On the right side, he placed the conservatives, and on the left, he wrote the names of the reformers. However, there were only 2 names on the left. One of them was Kai Jing. Seeing this, Emperor Huizong was delighted and immediately appointed Kai Jing as chancellor. Kai Jing's political suppression and corruption. Once in power, Kai Jing wielded absolute control. He branded any honest officials, whether conservative or reformist, as traitors, jiandong. He also orchestrated the erection of a stone stele, Dangren Bay, outside Duanli Gate, listing 120 officials, including Sima Guang, Wen Yanba, Su Shi, and Su Zhe. As members of the so-called Yuan Yu traitorous faction, Yuan Yu was the era name during Zhizong's early reign. Officials who had passed away were stripped of their posthumous honors. Living officials were demoted and exiled. This purge eliminated all upright officials, leaving only Kai Jing's cronies in power. The distortion of Wang Engshi's reforms. Although Kai Jing claimed to continue Wang Engshi's reforms, he completely twisted their original purpose. For example, the service exemption law, originally intended to reduce the burden of forced labor, was turned into a tool for extortion. Instead of fairly distributing labor duties, Kai Jing's administration increased service taxes, exploiting the people for personal gain. Emperor Huizong's obsession with Taoism. As corruption worsened, superstition flourished. A Taoist priest named Lin Lingsu convinced Emperor Huizong that he was a divine being. Lin claimed that the heavens were divided into 9 celestial realms, with the highest being Shenshao, divine heaven. In Shenshao Palace, there was a jade pure king, who was the eldest son of the supreme deity. Emperor Huizong himself was the jade pure king incarnate. The 800 celestial officials of Shenshao had reincarnated into the mortal world, and among them were Kai Jing and Tong Guan. These absurd claims delighted Huizong, who immersed himself in Taoist rituals. He even bestowed upon himself a new title: Sovereign Taoist Emperor, Jiaozhu Daojiwen Huangdi. Essentially, he declared himself the leader of all Taoists, elevating religious matters above state affairs. The Flower and Rock Tribute, Huashergang. As Emperor Huizong indulged in luxurious pleasures, he began to tire of conventional treasures. To satisfy his growing appetite for rare items, Kai Jing and Tong Guan enlisted a scoundrel named Zhu Mian to oversee a special office in Suzhou, called the Yingfeng Bureau. Its sole mission was to collect exotic flowers and rare stones for the emperor's amusement. Zhu Mian commanded a group of corrupt officers and soldiers who roamed the countryside, searching for unique rocks and plants. Whenever they found something noteworthy, Soldiers would storm into private homes, seize the item, and affix a yellow imperial seal on it. The family was then ordered to guard the item carefully. Any damage would be considered an act of great disrespect, da bu jing, punishable by fines or imprisonment. If the object was too large to transport, soldiers would demolish the homeowner's house to remove it. Officials extorted bribes, and many families were financially ruined. Some were forced to sell their children and flee their homes. Forced labor and the river convoys. The confiscated stones and plants were then transported to Kaifeng on large fleets of ships. Since not enough transport vessels were available, officials seized grain transport boats and merchant ships, dumping their cargo to make space for the emperor's new treasures. This caused severe food shortages in many areas, disruption of trade, harming the economy, exhaustion among workers, who were forced into unpaid labor. These massive shipments of rocks and flowers were called flower and rock tribute, Huashirgang. Upon their arrival in Kaifeng, Emperor Huizong was overjoyed, and Zhu Mian was promoted. As the flower and rock tribute intensified, Zhu Mian's power expanded, and officials competed to please him. People mockingly referred to the Suzhou and Hangzhou Yingfeng bureaus as the Little Southern Court, a testament to Zhu Mian's unofficial rule over the wealthy southern regions. The consequences of excess. Under the rule of Emperor Huizong, the Song dynasty sank deeper into corruption and economic ruin. The burden of the flower and rock tribute, coupled with Cai Jing's oppressive governance, devastated the people. While the emperor lived in luxury, the dynasty's foundations were crumbling, paving the way for disaster in the years to come. 198. Fang La's Uprising. The flower and rock tribute devastated southeastern China, where towns and villages suffered under relentless exploitation. The worst affected areas were those rich in precious stones, trees, and minerals, including Qingxi and Muzhou, modern-day Chunnan, Zhujiang. In this region lived Fang La, a lacquer farmer who barely made a living from his lacquer garden. However, when Zhu Mian's officials began plundering the region for materials to supply the emperor's luxuries, Fang La's household was also targeted for extortion. Filled with rage and resentment, Fang La saw his fellow farmers suffering the same fate and decided to unite the people in rebellion against the government. The spark of rebellion. On one fateful day in 1120, hundreds of desperate farmers gathered in Fang La's lacquer garden. Addressing them with passion and sorrow, he said, "A nation is like a family. Imagine a household where the younger members work tirelessly all year to gather grain and fabric, yet the elders squander it recklessly. If the younger ones fail to meet their demands, they are beaten. Do you think this is right?" The crowd shouted in unison, "No." Fang La continued, "Not only do these elders waste everything, but they also offer their families wealth to appease their enemies. Should this be allowed?" The crowd, now furious, roared, "How can such injustice exist?" With tears in his eyes, Fang La declared, "Now, we peasants toil day and night, burdened by heavy taxes and forced labor. Yet the officials still plunder us. Even the lacquer and paper we produce are stolen. We labor endlessly, yet our families starve and freeze, unable to eat a single full meal. What shall we do?" Moved by his words, the crowd erupted in anger, shouting, "Give the order! We will follow you!" Fang La's army rises. Fang La, now the leader of the rebellion, raised his banner, declaring war against Zhu Mian and his corrupt officials. He proclaimed himself Sacred Duke, and his soldiers wore colored headbands to distinguish themselves. Fueled by righteous fury, the rebel forces killed local officials, burned government residences, liberated suffering peasants. The rebellion spread like wildfire. The oppressed people of Qingxi and nearby regions flocked to Fang La's cause. Within 10 days, Fang La had tens of thousands of soldiers. Defeating the imperial army. The local government, in a panic, dispatched troops to crush the uprising. However, the imperial forces suffered a humiliating defeat. 2 Song generals were killed, and the government troops scattered in terror. Seizing the momentum, Fang La's army Captured Qingxi County. Stormed and seized dozens of cities. Advanced rapidly toward Hangzhou. Panic in the capital. News of the rebellion reached Kaifeng, sending Emperor Huizong into shock. Terrified, he ordered Tong Guan to lead a 150,000-strong army to suppress the uprising. Imperial deception, the end of the Flower and Rock tribute. Upon arriving in Suzhou, Tong Guan realized that the public outrage against the Flower and Rock tribute was immense. To pacify the people, he issued an imperial edict, acknowledging the government's mistake, abolishing the Yingfeng Bureau that managed the Flower and Rock tribute, removing Zhu Mian from office. Hearing this, the people of the southeast finally felt some relief. They believed justice had been served. However, this was merely a deception. While pretending to reverse imperial policies, Tong Guan was secretly preparing a massive military campaign to crush Fang La's rebellion. The fall of Fang La. With overwhelming military force, Tong Guan launched a full-scale assault. Facing defeat, Fang La retreated into the remote mountainous valleys of Qingxi's Bangyuan Cave, where he made his last stand. The terrain was rugged and unfamiliar to the imperial forces, preventing them from launching a direct attack. However, at this critical moment, a traitor emerged within Fang La's ranks. This turncoat led the imperial troops through secret mountain paths, enabling them to ambush the rebels. Fang La was captured alive, transported to Kaifeng, and executed. Impact of the uprising. Although Fang La's rebellion ultimately failed, it delivered a severe blow to the northern Song dynasty. At the same time, the north was also in chaos, as another large-scale uprising erupted, this time led by Song Jiang and his 36 rebel warriors. The rise of the Liangshan rebels. Song Jiang's forces, originating in Hebei, waged a guerrilla war across Qingzhou, Qizhou, and Puzhou, modern-day Shandong. Their fierce battles terrorized the imperial army, and government forces often fled at the mere mention of their name. Meanwhile, in Liangshan Marsh, Liangshanbo, fishermen and farmers launched their own uprising. According to legend, Song Jiang's army also joined forces with the Liangshan rebels. The legend of the 108 heroes. Over time, the exploits of these rebels and outlaws evolved into folk legends. By the late Yuan dynasty and early Ming dynasty, the famous novelist Xu Nian compiled and fictionalized their stories into one of China's greatest classic novels, Water Margin, Shuihu Zhuan. Through this literary masterpiece, legendary figures such as Lin Chong, Lu Zhishan, Wu Song were immortalized in Chinese culture. Conclusion. The Fang La Rebellion and Song Jiang's uprising were not just isolated revolts, they were symptoms of a decaying dynasty. As corruption and exploitation pushed the people to the brink, resistance became inevitable. Though these rebels were eventually crushed, their stories lived on, inspiring generations through literature, folklore, and drama. And just a few years later, the northern Song would collapse entirely, conquered by the rising Jin dynasty, a fate foretold by the unrest Fang La and Song Jiang had ignited.